So I want to talk a little bit about this 1990 Masters. It's not a year that people talk about as much. They talk a lot about Jack's win in '86, but Raymond Floyd was known as a great front runner. Many tournaments he'd just keep building his lead. He's got a 4-shot lead with 6 holes to play. And look at this leaderboard. Raymond Floyd, Nick Faldo, Fred Couples, Lanny Watkins, Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson, Bernhard Langer. Didn't look like this on Thursday or Friday, yet alone Saturday, but here it is Sunday. So pretty good stuff. Pretty amazing.
Nick Faldo has in his hands a 1-iron. He is 230 yards from the flagstick. There is little or no wind at all. Seemed to have had a little left and long.
So this is really great here. I want to see one of the top players in the world, in this case Nick Faldo, coming down the home stretch in the Masters. He's a couple shots behind at this point. He's going to come into 15 hitting a 1-iron. So a green that's fairly shallow, completely protected by water in the front, and he's going to hit a low screaming 1-iron into this green. This is exciting. This is what interests me watching golf. I'm not interested in watching somebody come in here with a 5-iron or an 8-iron. I've even seen a few years ago some of the players hitting wedges in. Yeah, I have no interest in that. But Nick Faldo coming in here with a 1-iron, this is great. I don't think this should have been removed from the game. So the 1-iron is the hardest club to hit in the bag, and you've got one of the top players in the world pulling that club out and hitting one of the most difficult shots under pressure, back 9 Sunday at the Masters, coming into this green with a low trajectory 1-iron, makes a great swing, hits a great shot, lands this thing pretty close to the pin, but of course it's coming in low trajectory and it's hard to hold and it skips over the back of the green. But he'd probably rather be there than having to lay up and be 60, 80 yards back coming in with a pitching wedge or something. So, it's a strategic move. The back 9 on Sunday at Augusta was a lot more strategy involved in the classic game. It's what I enjoy watching. And so this is really great. I don't think it should have been removed from the game, hitting long irons. In this case, a 1-iron. Great stuff, and Faldo hits a great shot here. And, he ends up winning this tournament.
Imagine that he used to watch the Masters on TV in Welwyn Garden City in England and watched Nicklaus when he was a teenager. It was only then that he decided to play golf, and now he's playing alongside the 6 times Masters champion who has 200 yards to the flagstick. And a 4-iron in his hands. The crowd falls silent. Hit very high to the right. But it is on the dance floor. The band will be a little faint. Ray Floyd apparently has the Masters in his grasp with a 3-stroke advantage over the defending champion Nick Faldo.
Now everybody remembers Nicklaus winning this tournament in '86 when he was 46 years old. He's now 50 years old and he's tied for 3rd place on Sunday at Augusta. 4 years later, making another run. So he's playing with the defending champion Nick Faldo, and of course Nick's going to go on and win this tournament. But here's Jack on 15, ripping a drive past Nick Faldo and coming in here with a 4-iron. Now with a 4-iron, he can, has a good chance of holding this green. Not so much for Faldo coming in with a 1-iron, lower trajectory. But, here's Jack, 50 years old, trying to win another Masters. This is just really great. The thing I like about, the classic era of the game, much more about strategy, lines, angles, experience. And, if you look at this leaderboard, Raymond Floyd, Nick Faldo, Lanny Wadkins, Jack Nicklaus, Fred Couples, Bernhard Langer. Pretty strong. It's a pretty strong board here on Sunday. Didn't look like this after the first round. Didn't look like this after the second round, or even the third round. But as back nine comes around, and you start to see the cream rising to the top here, because this version of golf in the classic game, it just takes a deeper skill set to play the game. And ultimately, the great players are going to rise to the occasion here. So I don't think it's like that anymore. That's one of the reasons I'm not really that interested in the Masters anymore. But I still enjoy watching these Masters because I can still learn a lot about golf. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I'm seeing here. But again, Jack Nicklaus here, this is just fantastic stuff.
Great player, even par.
Hurry! Hurry!
Now here's Gary Player, 55 years old, playing in this Masters. Shoots 68 on Saturday. 68. He doesn't shoot 68 on Thursday. He does this on Saturday. Makes the cut, shoots 68 on Saturday. 55 years old. Listen to the sound of the compression that he's getting off the golf ball. I mean, his post-impact pivot thrust here is just off the charts. He's in great shape, playing great golf. This is one of the greatest players of all time. And the sound of him striking this golf ball on the 12th, when I heard this, my ears just peaked, and, it's just really wow. This is just great stuff. This is a great golf swing, great player, and it's interesting to just focus on this a little bit. And it certainly sounds a lot different than what everybody else is doing, and one of the reasons why he's one of the greatest players.
Great player, even par.
Hurry! Hurry!
Great player, even par.
Hurry! Hurry!
Great player, even par.
Hurry! Hurry!
So I'm jumping around here a little bit, but here's the playoff on number 11, the second hole of the playoff, and Faldo's hitting a persimmon driver. So say most of the guys are probably hitting metalwoods at this point, but Nick's going to win this tournament hitting a persimmon driver. Raymond Floyd's hitting a metalwood. Faldo knocks it 30 yards by Floyd here. Just nails one. I kind of always had the feeling like he would carry an extra 20 or 30 yards in his bag when he needed to. So he makes this incredible recovery for par in the playoff on the 10th hole. Definitely a little pumped up, and he's just thinking, I'm going to just rip this thing down there and take a good hard swing at it. And he just knocks it way by Raymond Floyd. So, it just goes to show, a persimmon driver versus a metalwood, there's really, as far if the size of the club is the same, it's really not any kind of disadvantage at all. In fact, I even think the persimmons are a little bit better than the metalwoods because, as far as accuracy, because the persimmon has a chunk of lead that's directly behind the sweet spot. So the efficiency and the transfer of energy is going to be better for a good player who's hitting the sweet spot all the time. And I think that's why Faldo here is, still hitting persimmon, because he knows it's a better club and he's winning the Masters with it. So you can't really argue that. Something to be said.
Knocked a wide.
Big tee shot by Nick Faldo. Sudden death at the 54th Masters. Raymond Floyd, defending champion Nick Faldo.
And Lanny, you actually have an observation about all of this experience.
So here, Lanny Watkins is going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the game of golf here in the, mid '80s to the, here it's 1990, and the square groove debate was the hot topic, that you could just buy a club and spin the ball more, and the guys using the traditional gear, the V grooves, had to learn to spin it through technique and this sort of thing. And he's saying that the older players that are doing well, you're seeing a lot of these names on the leaderboard, and he's basically saying that the classic equipment, you had to really learn how to hit the shots, and it's almost foreshadowing of what's going to come with the giant frying pan drivers and the ball going 50 yards farther and this sort of thing. I'm sure he probably wouldn't be too happy about that whole thing happening. I'm not sure what his take would be on it now, but here in 1990, I think what he's saying here is pretty spot on, and I'm sure he would not be happy about the direction that the game's gone. But I think the point here that he's really making is that in this era, the game was really more about skill and not so much about athleticism and being able to drive the ball 350 yards. It was still a game. Everybody's kind of hitting it 250, 260 off the tee. A few guys a little bit longer, but if you could position the ball around the golf course and learn how to hit the different shots and curve the ball and get control of your trajectories and that sort of thing, then you could still compete. And as we just saw, Gary Player at 55 years old is, he's on the back nine, top 10 in the tournament. So, pretty impressive.
We're seeing coming through.
Well, I think that the older guys like myself who grew up playing basic conventional clubs, V-groove clubs, learned to play shots, to play in conditions like we found here at Augusta, the U.S. Open, with the hard, fast greens and the wind and stuff. It takes a lot of imagination. Unless you've grown up playing those shots, the guys today that are growing up on square grooves and stuff like that haven't developed those shots, haven't had the time to use it and use their imagination to find the shots. I think that's why the older guys are hanging tough.
Ray Floyd, 130 yards out.
So Raymond Floyd here on 17, he's got a one-shot lead with 2 holes to play. He had a 4-shot lead with 6 holes to play. So you think he's got this thing won, but he hits it through the fairway on 13, so he can't go for the green, makes par. 15, he hooks his drive, not real bad, but he hits it left far enough that he can't go for the green. So he makes par there, while Faldo birdies both those holes, and then Faldo makes a great birdie on 16. So he gets 3 shots back, but Raymond Floyd's still got a 1-shot lead here. So he's 130 yards. He's got a 9-iron in his hand. And, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say, Raymond Floyd is going to make par here, at worst, from here. He pars 18. So all he's got to do is par this hole, and he wins the Masters. He wins his second Masters here. But this is where, in my mind, he loses the tournament right here. So the pin's cut to the right, and there's that little hump, that little spine in the green. And he's aiming this thing probably between the spine and the pin, playing safe, playing away from that bunker, taking that out of play. But he just tugs it a little bit, like maybe just a couple of yards from where he's aiming, and it gets on the left side of the spine and then rolls down to the left, and now he's got just almost an impossible putt from over there. I mean, he's 60, 70 feet away, coming up over a spine that's fast coming down the hill. And he three putts that and makes bogey. And I think this is where he loses the tournament right here. And from my perspective, I kind of feel like he's missed quite a few shots left. And maybe if he had a little flatter lie angles, that wouldn't have happened. I'm a big proponent of that because it really moves that left vector of possibilities a little bit more to the right. You just can't hit it as far left with a flat lie angled club, and he's pretty upright. So it's just, a little food for thought. Obviously a great player. I mean, I'm not really one to speak about, any deficiencies in Raymond Floyd's game while I'm, talking on YouTube and he's sitting there with, a Hall of Fame career. But I do think it's something to maybe consider. And it's one of the reasons I like watching these classic Masters when the game was really the true great game and the Masters was really the great tournament when the course played correctly and all the angles and lines and proportions were all correct. It didn't need to change, but it did. But I really prefer to watch some of these events from the past here because it's just a lot more educational. Certainly to me it is. So anyway, we'll just watch Ray hit this shot here, and I think you'll see what I'm saying.
He has parred this hole all 3 days prior to this afternoon. Now, that's not going to be easy. That is not going to be easy. He's a good 65, 70 feet away, has to come over a ridge and then downhill. We go to 18.
And Nick Faldo on the tee.
So I think this is really fascinating here. Nick's playing in the group ahead. Raymond Floyd has just hit his shot into 17, but he hasn't made bogey yet. So Nick here is still one shot behind, and he's teeing off 18, but he's not hitting a driver. He hits a 3-wood off the tee. So he's behind, but he's playing kind of conservatively. I think this is a really interesting strategic move that he's making here. He's taking the bunker out of play on the left, hitting a 3-wood. Also, he's going to get a little more loft on the ball with the 3-wood, so he can get it kind of up and over that tree on the right. If he does hit it a little bit right, he can get it up over those trees. So I think this is a really, really fascinating move here. He's one behind, but he's playing conservatively. Back on 15, he hits the whiner into the green because he was three shots behind at that point. But he birdies 15 and 16. So anyway, it's not something you'd see all the time. You'd kind of think that he'd pull out the driver and try and be as aggressive as possible and birdie 18. But I don't think he's playing for birdie here. So he's one behind. I think he's got to be thinking playoff. He wants to post the score and let it sit there and then see what Raymond Floyd does. So it's an interesting strategic thing he does here. Obviously, it works out. He's going to win this tournament. But it's something that, rewatching this, really kind of caught my eye, and I think it's it's an interesting choice.
3-wood he has chosen, and with good response from those close by.
Good position there, Pat. All he wants to do is keep away from those bunkers.
So I'm going to jump over to the playoff here, the 10th hole. Raymond Floyd just hits a great drive. If you can draw the ball off the tee, get it working right to left and catch that slope, then you can, essentially pick up almost, maybe another 50 yards. So it really makes sense to, to try and work the ball right to left, and it requires a specific shot. You have to draw the ball around the corner to get that advantage, catching that slope and getting down there. And in this case, Raymond Floyd does that, hits a great drive, and he's only got 175 yards or so into the green. Faldo doesn't draw it, hits a pretty straight shot, and he ends up on top of the hill up there, and he's got 220 or so yards, 225 yards, and he's got to come in with a probably a 2 or 3 iron or something into there. Some guys might even hit more than that, and so at this point you got to think Raymond Floyd's got definitely got the advantage here. And Faldo's going to, it's a tough shot, and he misses it into the right bunker, short, so he's got a long, long bunker shot, and Raymond Floyd just sticks it in there close. He's just maybe 15 feet right below the hole, putting for birdie. Faldo's down the right bunker with a long bunker shot. You got to think Raymond Floyd's going to win the Masters right here. So it's really, again, if you're a betting man, I think you're going to take Raymond Floyd again here at this point. Faldo was in the bunker apparently earlier in the day in the same spot and did not get it up and down. And in the playoff the year before against Scott Hoke, he was in that bunker and did not get it up and down then. So, it's an interesting change of events, You almost think that Faldo very easily could not have won a Masters at all, because the year before, Scott Hoke misses a 2-foot putt, and Faldo, goes on to win on the next hole. But I mean, if a PGA Tour player is a multiple tour winner, makes a 2-foot putt, Nick Faldo does not win that first Masters. And here, if Raymond Floyd just makes par on 17 with a 9-iron from 130 yards, or in this case, if Faldo can't get up and down from a really, really long bunker shot, while Raymond Floyd's 15 feet below the hole, or Raymond Floyd makes that putt, then Faldo doesn't win this Masters either. And of course, later on, the great collapse of Greg Norman, people weren't probably expecting that. I think he had, a 6-shot lead or something coming the last day, and Faldo was able to, just play good, solid golf. I'm not taking anything away from Nick Faldo. I'm a big fan, and he really just played super steady, smart, strategic golf and won all 3 of these Masters, which is great. But, he could easily not won any of them, really, if you really think about it. So, again, it's just kind of something I was thinking about.
Ever seen Nick Faldo's drive of approximately 260 yards? 2 1/4 from a difficult stance. Downhill, left foot below, difficult shot. And you can see he's aiming his body to the left, presumably for a cut.
Wait, anybody in the trap?
And he's left it in the trap again. It seems to be a favorite haunt of his, but he did bogey earlier today, remember, from that same position. And last year in the playoff, he bogeyed from that same position.
All right, there's so much noise that it carries way out there with this many
study
people.
on
So.
the part of Nick there, wondering about that shot that he just hit. Raymond in excellent position. Has no more than 170, I would say, to the hole. Always relaxed, always moving. And I don't think I have to tell you where that one is. It's right below the hole, approximately 15 feet.
So here's where Raymond Floyd in the playoff on the 11th, and he knocks his approach shot into the lake on the left. A lot of people think he choked. I don't think he choked here. And I say that because this camera angle here, which is different than the one that was on TV, shows his facial expression the entire time. Where on the CBS broadcast, it would show him hitting the shot and it shows the ball in the air and you don't see his face. But if you look at this, it sounds like he made good contact here. It doesn't sound like he hit it fat or anything. The swing looks good, the rotation, sounds like good contact. And if you watch his face, it looks like he's content with the shot for the first maybe 3 or 4 seconds while that ball's in the air. And then he sees the ball moving left and falls in the water. Now it's pretty commonly known that the winds kind of swirl around down in that little hole down there around 11 green and 12. That kind of little, it's like a little vortex down there. My suspicion is that he hit the shot he wanted to hit. He made a great swing on his iron shot into 10. I think he just hit a good shot here right at the pin. And I think he thinks at first that he just hit a great shot. And you can kind of see it on his face. And then the wind or something, grabs that ball and moves that thing a little bit left and it falls in the water. So I might be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. Take a look at his facial expression. I think this is more not a choke move. I think it's just incredibly disappointing. Golf is that way. Sometimes the ball just doesn't do what you think it should do. And in this case, I think he thought it should have just been right at the pin and knocked it in there, pretty stiff. So anyway, just kind of my thoughts here on this as well. But I think it's an interesting situation.
Raymond Floyd once again. Can't believe it.
So I'm going to sign off here with a final thought. Here's a set of golf clubs from the 1930s and a golf ball from the 1930s and a scorecard from the Masters in 1939. So pretty impressive here. Walter Hagen shoots 68 at Augusta with these kind of golf clubs and golf ball. And the course is roughly the same length that it is in 1990. And I'll tell you one thing for sure, the greens weren't nearly as good in 1939 as they are in 1990. For one, they were Bermuda greens back then. Slow, bumpy. So to go out with these kind of clubs and shoot 68, now that's pretty impressive. And but really, the game hadn't really changed that much from the 1930s into the early, say, the mid 1990s. What I consider the classic era of the game. I still feel like there's 3 versions of golf. You've got kind of the Hickory era, the classic kind of persimmon and steel shaft, balata ball era from the 30s through maybe the mid 90s, and then from the kind of late 90s when the big header drivers and the plastic golf balls and kind of super golf, which is kind of continuing into today. But I'm really impressed with Walter Hagen shooting 68 in the Masters with those clubs and ball. So, makes you think maybe those clubs weren't that bad. Maybe that golf ball wasn't that bad for guys to be able to do that. It's just some food for thought. But you're going to improve your golf by having better technique. You can be sure Walter Hagen had great technique, as did a lot of the guys in that era. Played some great golf. So anyway, we will see you soon, and I'm sure I'll get another video up and bring up some more controversy. Okay, we'll see you soon.